Minho stood in the grand hall of the Galactic Council, his hands clasped behind his back. The chamber was enormous, with ceilings so high they disappeared into darkness. 12 massive seats formed a semicircle around the speaking floor, each one holding an alien representative. Some looked like walking trees. Others resembled creatures from Earth's deepest oceans. A few were just clouds of glowing gas held together by force fields. This was the 47th time Minho had come here. 47 meetings over 3 long years. Each time he brought hope. Each time he left with nothing but disappointment. Behind him stood Ji-won, a woman who still believed peace was possible. Her eyes were bright with optimism even now. Next to her was Hyunwoo, a former soldier who said little but missed nothing. His face showed no emotion, but his eyes constantly scanned the room for threats. "Ambassador Kang," the voice boomed from above. It belonged to High Arbiter Quell, the leader of this council. The creature looked like a massive jellyfish floating in a tank of purple liquid. "We have reviewed your latest proposal. The council has made its decision." Minho felt his heart sink. He knew that tone. It was the same one they used every time they were about to reject humanity's offer. A smaller alien, Counselor Vrath, leaned forward. This one looked almost human, except for the blue skin and 3 eyes. "The council will allow Earth to join the galactic community," Vrath said. His mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "But there are conditions." A holographic document appeared in the air before Minho. He read it slowly, feeling anger build with each line. Earth had to give up all weapons. Not just the nuclear ones, but everything. Every gun, every ship, every defense satellite. Earth had to allow council inspectors to examine all human technology and control what could be developed. Earth had to provide 40% of its resources every year. Minerals, food, water, energy, 40% of everything. And finally, Earth had to accept a council overseer who would live on the planet and guide all major decisions. The document used the word guide, but Minho knew what it really meant. Control. "These terms are unreasonable," Minho said, keeping his voice level. "We came here seeking partnership, not surrender." Vrath's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "Ambassador, your species is young. Barely out of your cradle world. You discovered nuclear power only 2 centuries ago, and you nearly destroyed yourselves with it. Twice." The alien's voice dripped with contempt. "You are children playing with matches. The council knows what is best." Ji-won stepped forward. "Counselor, please. Humanity has made mistakes, yes, but we've learned from them. We've built a united world government. We've cleaned our oceans and atmosphere. We've eliminated poverty and disease. We've prepared ourselves to be responsible members of the galactic community." "Prepared?" Another counselor laughed, the sound like grinding rocks. "You have wars in your history that killed millions. You created weapons designed only to cause suffering. Your planet still has scars from your violence. Every species here has a violent past." Hyunwoo spoke for the first time, his voice quiet but firm. "The Draxians had the Crimson Century. The Velkrons fought the Clone Wars. The Tertians had their Great Purge. We've read your histories." Silence fell over the chamber. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. High Arbiter Quell's tank bubbled with agitation. "Those events happened thousands of years ago. We evolved beyond our savage natures. Humanity is still dangerous. These terms ensure you cannot harm yourselves or others." Minho looked at the document again. Every word was an insult. Every condition was a chain. They didn't want Earth as a partner. They wanted a slave world. He thought about the people back home. Billions of humans who had celebrated first contact, who had dreamed of walking among the stars as equals, who had worked so hard to prove they deserved a place in this galactic family. And these aliens wanted to put a collar on them all. "No," Minho said quietly. "Excuse me?" Vrath leaned forward. "I said no." Minho's voice was stronger now. He began gathering the documents from the podium, carefully placing them in his case. "Humanity declines your offer." Ji-won touched his arm. "Minho, wait. Maybe we can negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate, Ji-won." He looked at her and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Not anger, but certainty. "They don't want us as equals." "They never did." He turned back to the council. "For 3 years we've come here in good faith. We offered friendship. We offered our culture, our art, our science. We offered to share everything we are." He closed his case with a sharp click. You've offered nothing but chains. High Arbiter Quell's voice became sharp. Ambassador Kang, you are not dismissed. This council has not finished. This council, Minho interrupted, has no authority over Earth or humanity. We are not part of your community. We never were. He gestured to Jiwon and Hyunwoo. We're leaving. Vrath stood up, his 3 eyes wide with disbelief. You're making a mistake. Earth needs the council. You need our technology, our trade routes, our protection. Without us, you'll be isolated. Alone. When you realize your error, when your resources run thin and your people demand access to the stars, you'll come crawling back. Minho stopped at the doorway. He looked back at the 12 massive seats, at the aliens who thought themselves superior in every way. Perhaps, he said, or perhaps you'll realize that humanity doesn't beg. He walked out, his footsteps echoing in the massive hall. Jiwon and Hyunwoo followed. Behind them, they heard Vrath's laughter, confident and mocking. Let them go, the counselor said. They'll be back within a year. They always come back. But as the door closed behind the human delegation, Hyunwoo allowed himself a small smile. These aliens had no idea what they'd just done. They'd given humanity something it hadn't had in decades. A common enemy. A reason to unite. A purpose. The walk back to their ship was silent. Other species in the station stopped to watch them pass. Some whispered. Some stared. Everyone knew what had just happened. Humanity had been rejected by the Galactic Council. Or rather, humanity had rejected the Galactic Council. As their ship left the station and began the long journey back to Earth, Minho sat in the captain's chair and stared at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home, and beyond it the future. What now? Jiwon asked quietly. Minho was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just made a difficult decision and was ready to see it through. Now, he said, now we show them what humanity can do when we're not asking for permission. 6 months had passed since the human delegation walked out of the council chamber. 6 months of silence from Earth. Da-Yoon sat at her workstation in the Council Intelligence Center, staring at screens filled with data. As an analyst, her job was to monitor all species in known space, track their communications, their ship movements, their economic activity. It was usually boring work. Most species followed predictable patterns, but the humans had stopped following any pattern at all. Still nothing? Her supervisor asked, floating past her desk. He was a Tertian, his body like a cluster of glowing orbs. Nothing, Da-Hyun confirmed. No radio signals, no data transmissions, no communication satellites broadcasting. It's like they've gone completely dark. Maybe they're just sulking, the supervisor said with a sound like tinkling bells that served as his laughter. Primitive species often throw tantrums when they don't get their way. But Da-Hyun wasn't so sure. She'd been studying humanity for 2 years now. They were emotional, yes, impulsive sometimes, but they weren't stupid. And this silence felt deliberate. She pulled up the records from the past 6 months. Every human ship that had been exploring nearby systems had returned to Earth. Every human probe had been recalled. Every human research station had been abandoned. The humans had pulled back completely into their own solar system. It's coordinated, she muttered to herself. Too coordinated to be a tantrum. She filed her report, though she knew no one would pay attention. The council was too busy congratulating itself on putting the humans in their place. 3 weeks later, everything changed. A council survey ship, the brightness of dawn, approached human space. Its mission was simple. Check on Earth, see if the humans were ready to accept the council's generous terms yet. The captain was confident. They always came back. But as the ship approached the edge of the Sol system, something impossible happened. A wall of energy appeared in space. It wasn't visible to the naked eye, but every sensor on the ship screamed warnings. The energy field stretched across the entire approach to Earth's solar system, a barrier that shouldn't exist. The captain tried to push through. The ship's engines roared to full power. The barrier didn't break. Instead, it pushed back. The brightness of dawn was thrown backward through space like a toy boat hit by a wave. Not destroyed, not damaged, just moved. Pushed away as if by a giant invisible hand. When the ship finally stopped tumbling, the crew was shaken but alive. The captain sent an immediate message to the council. The humans have built a defensive perimeter. Energy readings are off the scale. Recommend no further approach. Dahyun read the report 3 times. She ran the numbers again and again. The power required for such a field was enormous, far beyond what human technology should be capable of. During the peace talks, Earth's most advanced power source was basic fusion. This energy signature suggested something far more advanced. She brought her findings to a council subcommittee meeting. Councillor Thane was there, a Velcron who specialized in military matters. He looked like an armored bear standing upright, his species bred for war. The humans couldn't have developed this technology on their own. One councillor said dismissively, "They must have stolen it." "From whom?" Dahyun asked. "No other species has this technology. Our databases show nothing like it. Perhaps they found ancient ruins," another suggested. "Old technology from a dead civilization." Thane said nothing, but his small eyes were thoughtful. After the meeting, he pulled Dahyun aside. "Show me everything about human space," he said quietly. "All sensor data from the past 6 months." They went to Dahyun's office and she displayed the information. Thane studied it for hours. He was particularly interested in the outer edges of Earth's solar system, a region called the Kuiper Belt. There, he pointed at anomalous readings. "What is that?" Dahyun enhanced the image. "Heat signatures. Lots of them. And massive energy readings scattered across the belt of ice and rock beyond the outer planets." "Construction," she breathed. "They're building something." "Many somethings." Thane's expression grew dark. "Not somethings. Shipyards, factories, they're industrializing their outer system." He turned to her. "How long would this take with their technology?" Dahyun ran calculations. "With the technology they had 6 months ago? Impossible. This would take decades, maybe centuries. But they're doing it in months." Thane sat down heavily. "Which means they've made advances we didn't think possible." Over the next few weeks, more pieces of the puzzle appeared. A long-range deep space monitor picked up something in the void between star systems. Ships. Human ships. But not the crude vessels they'd sent to Council space before. These were sleek and powerful. They moved at speeds that required quantum drives, technology the Council had refused to share with Earth. The monitor's AI estimated at least 50 vessels in formation. The monitor station tried to hail them. A woman's face appeared on the screen. She wore a uniform that looked military, her expression calm and professional. "This is Captain Yuna of the Human Expeditionary Force," she said. "We're passing through this region. Please maintain a safe distance." The station commander, Adraxian, bristled at her tone. "This is Council space. You need authorization to pass through." Yuna's expression didn't change. "Earth is not part of the Council. Your laws don't apply to us. We're exercising our right to free passage through unclaimed space. Gus, this is claimed space. By Council decree." "We don't recognize your decrees," Yuna interrupted. "Now we can either pass through peacefully or you can try to stop us." "I'd advise the first option." The station commander looked at his tactical display. The human ships weren't powered for battle, but their energy signatures were strong, very strong. He made the smart choice. "Safe travels," he muttered. The human fleet passed by without incident, heading toward the fringe, the outer regions where independent colonies existed beyond Council control. When this report reached the Council, there was chaos. Some demanded military action. Others urged caution. High Arbiter Quell called for calm. "They're posturing," Quell announced, showing off their new toys. "Let them play in the fringe. When they realize they need real trade partners, real allies, they'll return." But Councillor Thane wasn't convinced. He went to the Council archives and requested something unusual: human historical records. Every war, every conflict, every period of human violence that the Council had used to justify their harsh terms. He studied them for days. The World Wars, the Cold War, smaller conflicts scattered across centuries. He looked for patterns and he found something terrifying. Humans didn't just fight, they evolved. Every major conflict pushed their technology forward by decades. Their First World War gave them engines and chemistry. Their second gave them jets, rockets, and nuclear power. Their Cold War gave them computers, satellites, and space travel. War made them stronger. Conflict made them innovate. And the Council had just given them the biggest motivation in their history: a common threat. Thane called an emergency military session. Only those with security clearance attended. "We made a mistake," he said without preamble. "We looked at human violence and saw savagery. We should have seen adaptation. He showed them the patterns, how humans turned every challenge into an opportunity, how they learned from every defeat, how they never stayed down. We gave them 3 years of peace and a reason to unite. Thane continued. We gave them something to overcome. And if their history is any guide, they used that time to leap forward technologically. Impossible, a Tertian counselor said. No species can advance that quickly. Humans did it before. Thane pulled up records. In their 20th century, they went from basic flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. From the first computer to artificial intelligence in 50 years. They do the impossible when they're motivated. What are you suggesting? Someone asked. Thane looked at them all gravely. I'm suggesting that we may have created our own worst enemy. And we did it by underestimating them. The room fell silent. On the main screen, sensor data showed more human ships appearing in fringe space. Not attacking, not invading. Just appearing, present, growing. Somewhere out there, beyond the defensive barrier they'd built, humanity was doing something. Building something. Becoming something. And the Galactic Council, for the first time in thousands of years, felt a flutter of uncertainty. 1 year had passed since humanity walked away from the Council. 1 year of growing uncertainty. Da-Hyun had become obsessed with the human situation. Every day she compiled reports, tracked movements, analyzed data. And every day the picture became more disturbing. She sat in her small apartment, unable to sleep, reviewing files on her personal screen. Something had been bothering her for weeks. She pulled up the old trade records from when humans were still talking to the Council. Earth had traded for specific things. Not the usual stuff new species wanted. They didn't ask for entertainment, luxury goods, or common technology. Instead, they requested samples, rare isotopes, exotic matter, quantum computing matrices, data crystals containing scientific papers. At the time, it seemed like innocent curiosity, scientists wanting to study alien materials. But now Da-Hyun saw the truth. They weren't just studying. They were learning. Reverse engineering. Every sample was a puzzle piece. Every data crystal was a blueprint. They never needed our technology, she whispered to herself. They just needed to see that it was possible. She thought about human history. They'd done this before. During their World War, one nation had captured enemy technology and used it to build their own versions. Sometimes better versions. Humans were excellent at seeing how something worked and then making it themselves. The Council had given them samples of advanced technology, thinking humans were too primitive to understand it. But humans didn't need to fully understand. They just needed a direction to research. She wrote a report. A warning. She sent it to every counselor who would listen. Most ignored it. Counselor Thane didn't. Meanwhile, in the fringe territories, something unprecedented was happening. The fringe was where independent species lived. Colonies that had refused to join the Council because the membership terms were too harsh. They lived on the edges of known space, isolated but free. For years, they'd struggled alone. But now, humans had arrived. A ship appeared in orbit around Kirath, a planet inhabited by insect-like beings who were brilliant engineers but lacked resources. The ship was massive, its design unlike anything in Council space. Sleek and efficient, with engines that burned brighter than they should. A message was broadcast to the planet's surface. This is Ambassador Tajan of Earth. We come seeking friendship and mutual cooperation. The Kirathi were suspicious. Every species that had come before wanted something. Resources, land, servitude. But Tajan's offer was different. Earth proposes an alliance, he explained at the meeting with Kirathi leaders. We share technology. You share engineering expertise. We establish mutual defense. Fair trade. No demands for tribute. No oversight committees. Just partners working together. The Kirathi leader, a being called Clickwise, studied the human carefully. Why? What do humans gain? Tajan smiled. Friends, allies, knowledge. We're new to the galaxy. We don't pretend to know everything, but we believe cooperation works better than domination. The Council doesn't think so. The Council is wrong, Tajan said simply. We learned that the hard way. The Kirathi accepted. Within weeks, human engineers were on Kirath, sharing shield technology and advanced manufacturing techniques. In return, Kirathi taught humans their unique approach to structural engineering and biomechanics. The same scene played out across the fringe. The Namari, Peaceful traders who'd been isolated for decades gained access to human quantum communication networks. The Solgrim, a warrior culture, received defensive platforms and training in modern combat tactics. In return, humans learned. They learned Nomari navigation techniques that could plot courses through unstable space. They learned Solgrim metallurgy that could produce armor lighter and stronger than anything Earth had developed. Each species contributed. Each species benefited. It was everything the Council claimed to offer but never delivered. On Earth, in a facility deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Sunhee worked on something that would change everything. She stood in a laboratory filled with equipment built from a dozen different species technologies. Kirathi engineering, Nomari power systems, human innovation, all blended together. "Run the test," she ordered. Her team activated the device. A small sphere of pure energy appeared, hovering in the containment field. It pulsed with power that made the instruments sing. "Zero-point energy extraction," Sunhee breathed. "We actually did it." One of her assistants looked at the readings. "Doctor, this is stable. We could scale this up. That's exactly what we're going to do." Zero-point energy was theoretical even for the Council. Energy pulled from the fabric of space itself, limitless and clean. Humans had taken the theory from Council databases, engineering principles from the Kirathi, and their own desperate creativity and made it real. Within months, zero-point reactors were being installed on every human ship and station. Limitless power, no fuel needed. The energy requirements that had limited human expansion were gone. The Council started noticing changes in fringe space. Their spy drones sent back images that seemed impossible. New stations orbited fringe worlds. Defense platforms, powerful and numerous, surrounded vulnerable colonies. Trade ships, faster than anything the Council had, moved between systems that had been isolated for centuries, and all of it had human markings. Councillor Vrath called an emergency session. He was no longer laughing. "The humans are building an empire in the fringe," he declared. "They're turning our rejected species against us." "They're not turning anyone," Dayun said quietly. She'd been invited to present her findings. "They're offering what those species always wanted: partnership, respect." "It's a trick," Vrath insisted. "Humans are manipulative. They're playing a long game." Thane shook his head. "Look at the data. Human ships could attack Council space. They have the technology now, but they haven't. They're staying in the fringe, building alliances. If they wanted war, we'd know it." High Arbiter Quell bubbled in his tank. "Then what do they want?" No one had an answer. On the edges of Council space, species were watching. Races that had been part of the Council for generations, paying tribute, following rules, accepting less than equal treatment. They saw what was happening in the fringe. They saw former outcasts becoming prosperous. They saw technology being shared, not hoarded. They saw respect being given freely, and some of them started asking questions. A delegation from Tarmus, a Council member world, sent a secret communication to Earth. They wanted to talk. Not about joining humanity, just talking, exploring options. Tejan met with them quietly, away from Council eyes. "We're not trying to destroy the Council," he explained. "We're just showing there's another way." "But the Council has been the power in this galaxy for 10,000 years, the Tarmesian leader said. "They won't accept this challenge." "It's not a challenge," Tejan said. "It's a choice. Every species should have the right to choose their own path." The Tarmesians left without making a decision, but they left thinking. 2 months later, they announced their withdrawal from the Council. 3 more worlds followed within weeks. The Council's power was built on numbers, on having so many member worlds that their combined resources made them unstoppable. But if worlds started leaving, High Arbiter Quell watched the reports come in. Species leaving, trade routes shifting, whole sections of space turning away from the Council and toward this new alliance forming around Earth. "How did this happen?" he asked Thane privately. The Velcrin military expert sighed. "We treated them as inferiors. We offered them submission instead of partnership. And when they refused, we laughed at them. They were inferior. Their technology was centuries behind ours." "Was," Thane emphasized. "We gave them samples of our technology to study. We gave them 3 years of peace to work. We gave them motivation to innovate. And we forgot the most important thing about humans, and what's that?" Thane pulled up images on the screen. Humans throughout their history. facing ice ages, plagues, wars, disasters, always adapting, always surviving, always finding a way forward. They don't quit, Thane said. When you corner them, when you threaten them, when you tell them they can't do something, they prove you wrong. It's what they do. It's what they've always done. So what do we do now? Thane looked at the map of known space. The Council's territory was still vast, but it was shrinking. The fringe was growing, and between them, humanity's influence spread like roots through soil. We have two choices, Thane said. We can fight them, start a war we might not win, or we can learn from our mistake. Learn what? That maybe, just maybe, we were wrong about humanity. And about ourselves. Quell bubbled silently in his tank, thinking about empires and how they fall, usually through conquest from outside. But sometimes they fall because they forget how to change. And the Galactic Council hadn't changed in 10,000 years. Maybe, Quell thought with something like fear, it was already too late. 18 months after walking away from the Council, humanity had transformed the galaxy. Jiwan stood in the conference room of the newly established Coalition headquarters on Sanctuary Station. The station floated in neutral space, built by combined efforts of 47 different species. Human construction techniques, Karathi engineering, Nomari power systems, Solgrim defensive arrays. It was a symbol of what cooperation could achieve. Through the massive windows, she watched ships come and go. Vessels from dozens of worlds, all flying freely, all equals. No tribute payments, no overseer ships, just trade and friendship. It's beautiful, isn't it? Taijin said, walking up beside her. Jiwan nodded. A year and a half ago I thought we'd failed. I thought walking away from the Council was giving up. And now? Now I understand. We didn't walk away from peace. We walked away from submission. She turned to him. How many more worlds have applied for Coalition membership? 12 this week. 3 of them are current Council members. Taijin pulled up a data pad. The Council is hemorrhaging members. Their economy is starting to collapse. Good, Jiwan said, surprising herself with the hardness in her voice. Maybe they'll finally understand that you can't build a civilization on the backs of others. On Council Prime, the situation was desperate. High Arbiter Quell floated in his tank, surrounded by angry counselors. The chamber that once echoed with arrogant confidence now filled with panicked voices. 17 worlds have left the Council in the past 6 months, Vrath shouted. 17. Our resource income has dropped by 30%. Trade routes are being redirected to Coalition space. Species that have been loyal for thousands of years are questioning their membership, another counselor added. They're looking at the fringe and seeing prosperity. They're looking at us and seeing stagnation. A Tertian counselor flickered with agitation. We must act. Military action. Show them the consequences of defying the Council. Military action against whom? Thane asked calmly. The Coalition? They have 47 member species now. Their combined fleet is larger than ours. And their technology. He paused. Their technology is advancing faster than we can track. Impossible, Vrath said. No alliance can innovate that quickly. Dahyun stepped forward. She'd been promoted to chief analyst, one of the few council members who'd seen the truth early. It's not just possible, it's happening. The Coalition operates on a principle of shared knowledge. When one species discovers something, everyone benefits. They're not hoarding technology like we do. She displayed recent intelligence. Human. Ships now moved at speeds that rivaled Council's fastest vessels. Their shields were stronger. Their weapons, though they hadn't used them, were clearly formidable. And their industrial capacity was growing exponentially. How? Quell asked, his voice weak. How did they advance so far, so fast? Because they worked together, Dahyun said simply. Really work together. The Karathi teach them engineering. The Nomari teach them navigation. The Solgrim teach them metallurgy. And humans teach everyone their innovation techniques, their rapid development processes. Humans are orchestrating this, Vrath said. It's a plot to overthrow the Council. Thane laughed, a sound like grinding stones. If it was a plot, we'd already be overthrown. Look at their fleet positions. They could strike council space from a dozen directions. But they haven't. They're not interested in conquest. Then what do they want? The same thing they wanted 18 months ago, Thane said. To be left alone. To live as equals. We're the ones who made this complicated. Quell bubbled anxiously. We cannot simply allow the council to dissolve. We've maintained order in this galaxy for 10 millennia. Have we? Dayun asked quietly. Or have we maintained control? There's a difference. The room fell silent. Finally, Vrath spoke, his 3 eyes dim with worry. What do we do? Thane stood up. We do what we should have done 2 years ago. We talk to them, as equals. In Earth's orbital shipyards, Admiral Hyunwoo reviewed the fleet status. 200 warships, state-of-the-art, powerful beyond anything Earth had possessed a year ago. And they'd never fired a shot in anger. Admiral, his second-in-command approached. We're detecting Council scout ships at the edge of Coalition space. They're not approaching, just watching. Let them watch, Hyunwoo said. They're learning what we already know. What's that, sir? That strength doesn't require aggression. We're strong enough that we don't need to prove it. His communicator chimed. A message from Earth's government. He read it and smiled. Prepare a diplomatic ship, he ordered. We're going back to Council space. The news spread quickly. Humanity was returning to the Council. Ships were being prepared, ambassadors were being selected. Vrath saw it as vindication. I told you they'd come back. They need us. But Thane wasn't so sure. He studied the reports. The human ships being prepared weren't small diplomatic vessels. They were escorted by warships, not threatening, but present. A show of strength. When Minho's ship arrived at Council space, it didn't come alone. Behind it were representatives from every coalition species. 47 different races all united, and around them, at a respectful distance, human warships maintained position, silent, powerful, watching. The council chamber had never been so full. Where once only the 12 counselors sat in judgment, now the floor was crowded with representatives. Kirathi, Nomari, Sulgrim, and dozens of others, all standing with humanity. Minho walked to the center of the floor. He looked different than he had 18 months ago, more confident, more certain. He carried himself like someone who knew his own worth. High Arbiter Quell, he began. Counselors, we've returned. Welcome back, Vrath said, trying to sound gracious. We're pleased you've reconsidered. We haven't reconsidered anything, Minho interrupted. We're not here to join the council. We're here to offer the council a choice, Quell bubbled forward. A choice? Minho nodded to Jiwan, who activated a holographic display. It showed a document, a treaty. The Terran Coalition offers the Galactic Council a treaty of mutual coexistence, Minho explained. The terms are simple: mutual non-aggression, open trade routes, cultural exchange, and most importantly, an end to forced tribute from member species. Forced tribute? Vrath sputtered. It's not forced, it's membership dues. 40% of a world's resources is not dues, Tajin said firmly. It's exploitation. The treaty requires the Council to release all member species from resource quotas. Let them choose freely whether to stay in the Council or not. Preposterous, Vrath shouted. You can't dictate terms to us. The Council has ruled this galaxy. The Council has ruled through fear and economic control, Minho said calmly. That ends now. Either you accept these terms or the Coalition will offer every Council member world an alternative. Freedom, partnership, choice. Quell's tank bubbled violently. You're threatening us. No, Minho said. We're offering you a way forward. A way for both the Council and the Coalition to coexist peacefully. But that requires the Council to change, to treat its members as equals, not subjects. And if we refuse? Vrath demanded. Hyunwoo's voice came over the communication system. Then the Coalition will continue to grow. More worlds will leave the Council. Eventually, you'll be a council of empty seats, ruling over nothing. He paused, then added, "Or you can choose war. But I don't recommend that option." As if on cue, the view screens in the chamber activated. They showed space around Council Prime. Hundreds of ships decloaked simultaneously. Human warships hanging in orbit, their weapons powered down but their presence unmistakable. The technology to hide so many ships so close to the Council's heart world was beyond anything the counselors had imagined. The implications were terrifying. Thane looked at the display and felt something he hadn't felt in centuries. Respect. And fear. "How long have they been there?" someone whispered. "Long enough," Hyunwoo answered. "We've been watching Council Prime for 3 months. You never knew we were here. That should tell you everything you need to know about the balance of power." Vrath stared at the screens, his 3 eyes wide with shock. The Council's seat of power, violated without them even knowing. It was humiliating. "This is an act of war," he said weakly. "No," Minho corrected. "This is a demonstration. War would look very different. We don't want war. We never did. But we won't accept subjugation, not for ourselves, not for anyone." Jiwan stepped forward. "The treaty is fair. More than fair. We're offering everything we wanted 18 months ago. Partnership, respect, coexistence. The only difference is now we're offering it from a position of strength instead of hope." She looked at each counselor in turn. "You can accept and we move forward together. 2 powers in the galaxy working in cooperation. Or you can refuse and watch your empire crumble as every species chooses freedom over servitude." The chamber was silent except for the bubbling of Quell's tank. The ancient arbiter looked at the screens, at the ships that had been hiding under his nose, at the representatives of 47 species standing united, at humanity, the species he'd dismissed as primitive children. "How long do we have to decide?" Quell asked quietly. "The treaty stands for 48 hours, Minho said. After that, we withdraw the offer and deal with each council member world individually." "You'd break up the council?" "No," Minho said. "We'd give your members the choice you never did." The 48 hours felt like an eternity. In the council chamber, arguments raged. Some counselors demanded war. Others urged acceptance. Most simply sat in shocked silence, trying to understand how their ancient power had crumbled so quickly. Vrath paced back and forth, his blue skin flushed darker with anger. "We cannot bow to these demands. We are the council. We've ruled for 10,000 years. And we can rule for 10,000 more," Thane said calmly. "If we accept the treaty, or we can cling to pride and rule over nothing." "You want us to surrender? I want us to survive," Thane corrected. "Look at the facts. 23 worlds have already left the council. 40 more are considering it. Our economy is collapsing. Our military is outnumbered, and the humans have technology we can't match." He leaned forward. "This isn't surrender. It's adaptation." Dahyun pulled up economic projections. "If we refuse the treaty, the coalition will offer membership to our worlds. Based on current trends, we'll lose 80% of our members within a year. The council will effectively cease to exist. So we're defeated," a Tertian counselor said, their lights dimming with sadness. "The Great Galactic Council, brought low by primitives." "They're not primitives anymore," Thane said. "They never really were. We just convinced ourselves they were to feel superior." High Arbiter Quell had been silent for hours, floating in his tank, thinking. Finally he spoke. "Tell me honestly, Thane, if we refuse and go to war, can we win?" Thane was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. "No, their ships are faster. Their shields are stronger. They have allies who would fight beside them. And they have something else." "What?" "Experience with total war. We've had peace for millennia. Humans had a world war less than a century ago. They remember how to fight, how to sacrifice, how to endure." He sighed. "We would lose badly." "So we have no choice," Vrath said bitterly. "We always had a choice," Quell said quietly. "We could have chosen to treat them as equals 2 years ago. We chose arrogance instead. Now our choices are limited, but we still have them." He looked around at the counselors. "All in favor of accepting the treaty?" One by one, hands, tentacles, appendages of all kinds rose into the air. Even Vrath, after a long moment, raised his hand. "It's decided then," Quell announced. "We accept." On Sanctuary Station, Minho received the message. He read it twice, then smiled. They accepted, he told Jiwon. She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Really? They actually accepted? Every term. They're releasing their member worlds from resource quotas immediately. They're opening borders for free trade. He scrolled through the document. They're even agreeing to a joint council coalition oversight committee to ensure fair treatment of all species. Jiwon sat down, suddenly overwhelmed. We did it. We actually did it. We did, Minho agreed. Not through war. Through being strong enough that war wasn't necessary. Taejin entered the room, followed by representatives from the Kirathi, Nomari, and Solgrim. Is it true? The Kirathi asked, their mandibles clicking with excitement. It's true, Minho confirmed. The council accepted the treaty. As of now, every species in their territory has the right to choose. Stay with the council under fair terms or join the coalition. Over the next 3 months, 17 more species left the council to join the coalition. But something unexpected happened too. 23 species chose to stay with the council, not out of fear. Not because they had to, but because the council, facing its own extinction, had finally changed. Resource quotas were abolished. Oversight committees were dissolved. The council restructured itself from a ruling body to a cooperative alliance, similar to the coalition. The two powers, instead of enemies, became partners. Trade opened between council and coalition space. Technology was shared. Cultural exchanges began. The galaxy, divided for so long, started to unite. 5 years later, Minho sat in a garden on Earth. He was older now, retired from diplomatic service. The garden was peaceful, filled with plants from a dozen different worlds. A gift from the species he'd helped free. A ship landed nearby. Out stepped Thane, the Velcrin counselor who'd been one of the few to understand humanity's potential from the beginning. Ambassador Kang, Thane greeted, his armor gleaming in the sunlight. I'm not an ambassador anymore, Minho said with a smile. Just Minho, please sit. Thane settled onto a bench designed to hold his weight. He looked around at the garden. It's beautiful here. Earth has its charms, Minho agreed. What brings you here, Thane? Curiosity, mostly. And perhaps closure. The big alien was quiet for a moment. I wanted to understand. How did you do it? How did humanity advance so far so quickly? Minho thought about the question. Desperation, maybe. Determination, certainly. But mostly, he picked up a flower, examining its petals. We learned from everyone. The Kirathi taught us engineering. The Nomari taught us navigation. The Solgrim taught us metallurgy. We took all that knowledge and combined it with our own way of thinking. Which is? That impossible just means nobody's figured it out yet. Minho smiled. Humans are stubborn. When someone tells us we can't do something, we take it as a challenge. Thane made a sound like laughter. The council told you that you were too primitive to join the galactic community. And we took it personally, Minho finished. We didn't just want to prove you wrong. We wanted to prove that the whole system was wrong. That cooperation works better than domination. You succeeded, Thane said. The council is barely recognizable from what it was. We actually treat our members fairly now. It's strange, but better? Much better, Thane admitted. Our economy is actually growing. Species are innovating because they're not spending all their resources on tribute. We're advancing faster now than we did in centuries of the old way. Minho nodded. That's what happens when you let people be free. They surprise you. They sat in silence for a while, watching Earth's sun set over the garden. Ships from a dozen species crossed the sky, coming and going freely. The planet that had been isolated was now a hub of galactic activity. Can I ask you something? Thane said finally. That day when you walked out of the council chamber, were you afraid? Terrified, Minho admitted. I had no idea if we could do what we did. I just knew we couldn't accept subjugation. What gave you the courage? Minho thought back to that moment. To the anger he'd felt. To the determination. To the decision that changed everything. I remembered something from human history, he said. A quote from one of our leaders. She said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." The council was trying to make humanity feel inferior. And I realized we didn't have to accept that. We could choose to stand up even if we didn't know what would happen next. And if you had failed, if the council had crushed you, then at least we would have failed standing up. not kneeling down. Minho looked at Thane. Humans have a saying, it's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. We meant it. Thane was quiet for a long time. We underestimated you. Yes. We saw your violence and assumed you were savages. Yes. We should have seen your resilience. Your adaptability, your refusal to quit. That would have been wiser, Minho agreed. Thane stood to leave. Thank you, Minho, for the conversation. And for the lesson. What lesson? That real strength isn't about dominating others. It's about standing up for yourself. And that the species you dismiss today might surprise you tomorrow. As Thane's ship lifted off, Minho remained in the garden. He thought about the journey humanity had taken. From isolated Earth to rejected supplicants to respected equals. It had been hard, scary, uncertain, but they'd done it not through conquest, not through submission, but by being exactly what humans had always been. Stubborn, innovative, and absolutely refusing to accept that they were less than anyone else. On Sanctuary Station, Jiwon stood at her post as Secretary General of the Terran Coalition. She looked out at the ships moving through space. Council vessels and coalition vessels, flying side by side, trading, cooperating, learning from each other. She thought about that day 2 years ago when she'd believed walking away from peace talks was giving up. Now she understood. Sometimes you have to walk away from a bad deal to find a better one. Sometimes you have to reject what's offered to create what should be. A young human intern approached. Secretary General, the latest membership application just came in. From whom? The Draxian Republic. They're leaving the council to join us, Jiwon smiled. The Draxians, Frath species, the ones who'd laughed when humanity walked away. Accept their application, she said. Everyone deserves a second chance. Even those who didn't give us one. Across the galaxy, on worlds of every kind, species were learning a new truth. Power didn't come from domination. Progress didn't come from hoarding knowledge. Peace didn't come from submission. They came from respect, from cooperation, from treating others as equals. It was a simple truth. Humanity hadn't invented it. But they'd reminded the galaxy of it when everyone else had forgotten. And in doing so, they'd changed everything. In the council chamber, mostly empty now with so many worlds having left, High Arbiter Quell floated in his tank. He was alone, thinking about the past and future. The council still existed, still had purpose. But it was different now, humbler, wiser, better. We could have had this from the beginning, he said to the empty room.